Wow, look. Those big round eyes. True that. It's been years since I've seen a baby this close. Just looking at her is so soothing. Babies really are wonderful, aren't they?
My sister, Emily, had given birth, and my in-laws insisted on seeing the baby, coming all the way from afar. The baby, being cradled by Emily, was sleeping soundly at the center of attention.
You're being such a good girl today, not crying. I wonder what kind of adult you'll grow into. Ah, babies are great. Why don't we have one, huh, Linda?
Inside the room, filled with warm sunlight, I harbored swirling emotions that were mine alone.
Well, babies are a blessing, you know. All right, let's start trying for a baby. I want a child too.
The moment I heard this, I slowly stood up. All eyes in the room turned to me. Eh? Aren't you already a dad to this little one? All eyes then shifted to the baby. My name is Linda. I turned 41 this year. Currently, I work part-time at a deli in a shopping mall close to our home. My husband, Michael, is 2 years older than me and works as a long-haul truck driver for a transport company, spending most of his days on the road. He comes home maybe once or twice a week. We both prefer not to be too involved with each other, so I rarely feel lonely. At least, that's what I tell myself. The only thing that makes me feel lonely is the fact that we don't have children. It's not that we never wanted them. In our 20s, just married, we thought it was just a matter of timing and youth. But as I entered my 30s, the absence of children started to feel more pressing, and we even tried some of the then uncommon fertility treatments. I was getting anxious about not seeing results, but Michael felt differently. If nothing comes of it after all this time, what's the point in continuing?
Maybe, but if we keep trying, it might work out. I'm tired from work, and spending my days off at the hospital is just depressing.
I'm healthy, Linda. Maybe the problem is with you? After that, Michael stopped going to the treatments. Honestly, we weren't exactly flush with cash. Feeling resentful of Michael's words, I gradually stopped going to the hospital too.
Good morning, you're up early. Good morning. I just woke up early, couldn't get back to sleep.
The lady who greeted me while I was taking out the trash lived on the floor below. We've been living in this apartment complex for almost 20 years, and she's been here even longer. Not just her, but many of the residents have lived here for a long time. Maybe that's why the age group here is on the older side, but everyone's nice and there's never any neighborhood trouble.
If there's any trouble, it's within the home.
I muttered to myself, unheard by anyone. When I was younger, I dreamt of spending all my time with him. But now, the only relief I have is when Michael is away at work. While our relationship isn't bad on the surface, after over 20 years of marriage, our conversations have dwindled. Plus, we both naturally avoid talking about children. Then one afternoon, the doorbell rang.
Hey sis, it's Emily.
Come in, welcome. Standing at the door was my sister, Emily, 5 years my junior. I started dating Michael and moved in with him around the time Emily graduated from high school and left our family home. Our family home isn't too far from where we live. Our mother moved into a nursing home, and since then, our father, George, has been living alone. Ever drop by to see Dad? No, I've been too busy to go back home. Dad hardly ever answers the phone. He's probably doing fine though. Typical Dad. He may not be good with words, but I bet he's feeling lonely. You visit him often enough, so it's fine, isn't it? You really do whatever you please, don't you? Our father, George, has always been a workaholic and quite reserved with everyone. He used to leave all the household chores to Mom. Now, he can manage his daily needs, at least. But right after Mom passed away, I was so worried about Dad that I used to visit our family home every day.
Hey, Dad. Here's your food for tomorrow morning and lunch. You can microwave it in the container. I've folded the laundry, so just put it away yourself. Oh, and…
Dad never said much, but I kept visiting, resigning myself to his ways. Michael's parents, on the other hand, live far away in a place where snow piles up to an adult's height in winter. They're much more sociable than my dad and often come to visit us. By the way, I still have some persimmons my mother-in-law brought over last time. Want some? Nah, I'm good for now. There's a drama I want to watch today, so I'll head back before evening. I'll take the persimmons with me. Okay, I'll get them ready for you. Michael's parents sure do visit a lot, considering the distance. Mom loves the city life. She's thrilled just going around the shopping mall with us. I remember you two went out together last month. I'm lucky to have a good relationship with my in-laws. We can talk about anything. Well, I want to stop by the convenience store on my way home, so I should get going. Be careful, it gets dark early these days. Don't sound like Mom. We're both old enough, you know. When's your next day off? Let's go to that new cafe near the station. I think I'm off this Saturday. Alright, I'll get in touch. Emily checked her schedule on her smartphone. She lives just a couple of bus stops away. She often comes over to our place for dinner, saying she's too lazy to cook. She even has her own pillow here since she frequently ends up staying the night.
Oh, right, sis. I'm pregnant. What? What do you mean?
Her unexpected announcement caught me off guard.
You know those dating apps? They're actually kind of fun. I met someone I really clicked with about a year ago. One thing led to another, and when I went to the doctor because I wasn't feeling well, they told me I'm 3 months pregnant.
Emily spoke with a laugh here and there.
Is he a decent guy?
I don't know if you'd approve, but he's a good person. She sounded a bit subdued. Maybe she felt guilty about meeting someone through a dating app. Anyway, congratulations.
Is that the right thing to say?
Sorry for being happy before you.
No, don't worry about it.
I felt a sting in my heart but hid my feelings, thinking I should be happy for Emily's joy. Let me know if you need anything, okay? Thanks, I'll count on you. As Emily opened the door to leave, a swirl of mixed feelings churned inside me. I should be happy for her, I reminded myself. When Michael came home, I told him about Emily's pregnancy.
What? Pregnant? Emily is? Whose child?
Someone she met on a dating app. I haven't met him yet.
I see. Well, that's certainly something to celebrate.
Michael sat down on the sofa, finished his beer, and turned to me.
But why don't we have such happy news in our home? What? You're bringing this up now? It's your fault for stopping the treatment, isn't it? I'd like to hold my own child too. You were the first to quit the treatment. Don't blame me. There's nothing wrong with my health.
I do envy people with kids. It seemed in Michael's eyes, I was the only one at fault. I felt irritation towards him and frustration at ourselves for not being able to share and overcome our problems as a couple. Since then, Michael frequently made snide remarks about us not having children.
If I had a child, I'd secretly watch them run errands.
He would openly express his admiration while watching TV shows featuring children. Once, he even bought a book about fertility treatments and threw it at me.
I paid for the book with your money.
Make sure you read it thoroughly. Is it fair to be harassed like this just because we can't have children? To distract myself, I started helping Emily more often. With cleaning, shopping, and cooking.
Sorry, sis, the morning sickness has been terrible.
It's okay. Emily's place was always messy whenever I visited, and her meals seemed to consist mostly of store-bought deli food or instant ramen. Being pregnant is tough. Everything tires you out more. Oh, sorry. I guess you wouldn't know, not having a baby. Emily sometimes tried to one-up me, often exaggerating the difficulties of pregnancy. Yet, she didn't seem to be focusing on getting the right nutrition for the baby or preparing for after the birth. I occasionally tried to advise her, but it didn't seem to make much of an impact. Emily's child was growing well, but I had one major concern. I had never seen the man who would be her husband.
Have you thought about introducing him to Dad? It seems like he got a promotion or something, and he's often away on business trips. Greetings seem old-fashioned, so I thought it might be fine to skip them.
Okay.
Let me know when you can.
Yeah. With that, Emily abruptly ended the conversation as if declaring the topic closed. I had other thoughts but chose not to pry further. It wasn't the right time. Time passed, and Emily gave birth to a boy. She hesitated to tell our father. She and Dad never talked much.
Dad might get mad, saying things should be done in a certain order. Really? He was quite accepting when I told him.
After much urging from me, Emily finally called to inform him. Despite her worries, Dad simply responded with his usual lack of emotion, I see. Michael's parents, on the other hand, were overjoyed when I told them about Emily's childbirth, celebrating as if it was their first grandchild.
Hey, Linda, we'd like to send a gift. Would that be okay?
They sent Emily congratulatory gifts through Michael, diaper cakes, bibs, baby clothes, and more. Unable to hold back, they eagerly hoped to meet the baby, if Emily wouldn't mind.
Michael's parents want to see the baby. Why? It's none of their business. They gave you a lot of gifts, right? It wouldn't hurt to meet them.
Initially reluctant, Emily eventually gave in. I arranged for everyone to meet at my house, and the celebration began surrounded by an abundance of food ordered by Michael's parents.
Look at those big round eyes. It's been years since I've seen a baby up close.
Michael's parents were incredibly excited. Michael, who was also present, seemed ready to enjoy the gathering.
Babies are great. Why don't we have one, Linda? Well, babies are a blessing.
Even so, not being able to get pregnant for nearly 20 years, I wonder if there's something wrong with you. That's not true.
Right, let's try for a baby again. I want one too.
I slowly stood up as he said this. All eyes turning to me.
What? But you're already this child's father, aren't you?
I pointed to the baby Emily was holding, now sleeping peacefully. The room fell into an astonishing silence. Emily was the first to speak, laying the baby down and glaring at me.
What are you talking about? That's ridiculous. You've gone crazy because you can't have kids? That's right. My child? Are you saying Emily and I had an affair? Ridiculous.
Michael's parents watched the exchange, confused.
I get it. You're trying to make up some story to claim the baby as your own. It's shameful to frame your sister like this. Exactly. You've always been like this. Blaming others. Maybe it's your fault we don't have kids.
Michael's mother tried to intervene, but I took out my smartphone.
I decided not to trust you too when I saw this.
The smartphone screen displayed Emily's home. I showed them the accumulated photos one after another. There were photos of Michael leaving her place and the two of them embracing passionately. Michael and Emily, who had just been insulting me, were speechless and turned pale.
This photo was taken 3 years ago. Why do you have such a thing?
When Emily stayed over, you seemed unusually excited, Michael. And Emily, you were too close to him. I was worried.
That was just normal. I learned a few days before I took this photo from the old lady downstairs. She said she heard a woman's voice, thought someone was home. Odd, since I was just returning from my part-time job. That could have been a mistake. Maybe she heard the TV.
Oh, you said you were at work that day, but you were home, Michael.
At first, I thought you were seeing another woman. I didn't want to believe it but decided to track your smartphone's GPS to be sure.
You had no right to do that.
Then I found out you were at Emily's place. That alone wasn't enough evidence, and I couldn't bring myself to go there. So I asked someone to take these photos.
The shock of seeing those photos was almost suffocating. But my anger and determination overcame it.
I've been watching you too, knowing the truth. Did you think you were not being caught? I gathered plenty of evidence. So you doubted my pregnancy announcement?
It was a shock.
I wanted it to be a lie. But Emily, you always avoid eye contact and flee when you lie. You did the same when I asked about the father. What are you talking about?
The atmosphere in the room was heavy. I felt a tremendous pressure. But I couldn't back down now. This had to be resolved today, or I'd regret it forever.
This is a lie, a mistake.
Michael, did you betray Linda? My father-in-law's voice trembled. And my mother-in-law looked ready to cry. I felt sorry for involving them but needed witnesses. The house had turned into a battlefield. When suddenly the front door burst open. It was my father. With heavy footsteps, my father marched in confidently and headed straight towards Emily.
Dad!
His face was red with anger.
Emily! You! What? It's none of your business, Dad. Still saying that after all this? I saw and heard you too with my own eyes and ears. What are you talking about? I don't know anything about that. I was the one who took the photos. Linda came to me in tears, asking for help. I tracked you too instead of her.
I had tracked their movements with GPS and wanted to capture them in a photo as definitive proof. But doubt crept in. Should I really expose the truth? Or pretend nothing happened and continue as before? In my dilemma, I turned to my father. My stubborn father listened to me empathetically. The way he faced the mistakes his own daughter had made was incredibly reassuring. He offered to help me by capturing the situation firsthand, instead of me doing it.
Don't meddle in unnecessary matters. In front of the entrance, you two were talking loudly. I could hear everything clearly from a distance. Do you remember what you were talking about? I don't remember every little thing. You said, I can't stand that only Linda gets to be happy, and Michael said, I love you more than Linda. I want to break up with her and be with you instead. If you want to hear it in your own voices, I recorded it on my phone.
My usually quiet father was unable to contain his anger.
I too wanted to be happy about having a grandson. But when I heard the truth from Linda, I felt more ashamed than anything. Children can't choose their parents. When this child learns the truth, can you face him as a parent?
Seeing my father speak his mind brought me close to tears for the first time today. I tried to hide my watery eyes and turned back to Michael and Emily. My father started speaking in a resonating, calm voice.
Apologize now, Emily. Apologize sincerely. It's not too late to ask for forgiveness. Apologize from your heart, right here, right now. I don't know anything. It's not my fault.
Emily was flustered and backed into a corner by my father. Tears were streaming down her face, but I felt no sympathy.
Michael, where are you going?
I turned around to see Michael trying to sneak out, but my father-in-law caught him.
What kind of person are you?
My father-in-law, having caught Michael, forced him to apologize to me. Then, my father-in-law himself also apologized. Linda, I'm sorry. So sorry. His voice trembled differently than before. Next to my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, crying, apologized along with him. Michael seemed resigned and didn't resist.
Please lift your faces. Dad, calm down. The baby will wake up.
I took a deep breath and pulled out my final card from my bag. Our marriage is beyond repair. Michael, let's get a divorce. I put the divorce papers in front of Michael.
Divorce?
Yes.
I can no longer trust you. Isn't this an overreaction? It was just a fling.
Michael's face showed the most pitiful expression I had ever seen.
A fling? You're saying I was just a fling to you? I even had a baby because of this fling.
Emily, scolded by my father and betrayed by Michael, shouted in a face twisted with anger and sorrow.
I don't know anything about a baby. Is there even proof it's mine? It's definitely your child, Michael. There's no one else.
Under the pressure, both began to shed their pretenses.
Michael, you always talked about longing for children, yet now you reject this baby?
Well, that's...
And Emily, why did you get involved with someone else's husband? Like Dad said earlier, I couldn't stand the idea of only you being happy. Isn't it true that you were desperate for attention, and the only one who showed interest was Michael? Blaming me made you feel less guilty. What do you know, just because you're married?
Emily always had trouble keeping relationships for long. It wouldn't be surprising if she felt inferior to me. But that doesn't excuse her actions. After all, I had been betrayed for these 3 years.
Sorry, but I've made up my mind. I'm going back to my parents' house. This way, you'll have what you want, your child and the baby.
Isn't this what you wanted?
What about leaving? Who will do the housework then?
Obviously, Emily will. Right?
What? Why should I have to do that? That's what Michael wants in a wife, isn't it?
In the end, both of them remained unrepentant until the last. Perhaps their twisted nature made it easier for me to finally break away from them. Ignoring Michael's pleas, I grabbed my packed belongings and left the apartment with my father. Michael and Emily were left in a daze, while my in-laws continued to apologize. The day after returning to my parents' house, my father began packing up all of Emily's belongings left at home.
Emily needs to know she doesn't have a place in her home anymore.
He took the packed items to Emily's house, seemingly determined to set her straight, but returned sooner than expected.
She wasn't there. A wasted trip. You must be tired. Shall I make some tea?
I poured hot water from an old electric kettle into a teapot.
Didn't you just not want to see her face? A parent always remains a parent, no matter what their child becomes.
He looked me in the eyes as he spoke.
You're still my proud child.
Don't get all sentimental. You're too old for that. Feeling a bit embarrassed, I poured tea into his cup to change the subject. After leaving Emily's house, my father had also stopped by the apartment where I used to live. It was empty, a day after the chaos, with no one around. He happened to meet a neighbor from the floor below. They told him that loud voices continued even after we left our home, and that my in-laws had come by later with apologies. I truly felt indebted to my in-laws. My divorce from Michael went smoothly, thanks to the help of my in-laws. I thought about alimony, but considering Michael's future, it seemed impossible for him to pay. I wanted to avoid causing any trouble for my in-laws. Without any constraints, Michael's life became disordered. Before our divorce, I managed all our finances. After the divorce, Michael, having control over his income, seemed to spend recklessly without self-control. He began to go out drinking every night and seldom returned to his apartment. Showing up to work hungover is not an option in the transport industry, and he was quickly fired. He tried to find another job, but repeated the same mistakes at a different transport company. Lacking the skills for another field, Michael eventually couldn't pay his rent and was evicted. Now, I don't even know where he is or how he's living. As for Emily, Michael's parents, concerned about the baby, offered to live with her. It must have been a tough decision for them, seeing as how she played a role in destroying their son's family. Yet, they reached out to her, concerned about the baby's future. But their kindness didn't resonate with Emily. Feeling uncomfortable after Michael's dismissal, she left the baby with them and left without a destination. The baby is now thriving under the care of my in-laws. I've been in touch with them even after the divorce. They are my source of information about Michael and Emily. Both abandoned their parental responsibilities, exploiting the kindness of others to escape their troubles. I contacted my in-laws partly to atone for the neglect of my ex-husband and his sister. The baby is innocent in all this. Through special adoption, the baby is now legally their child. While I'm no longer connected to the baby, my in-laws always welcome me with warmth. I now interact with them as friends, not just in-laws. Even though Michael is gone, they visit me as often as before. They say once you experience the fun of the city, it's hard to stop, they remark. I appreciate you coming all this way. I'll make sure you're well taken care of during your stay, I reply. I know they're considering my feelings and my dad's. I feel guilty for their long trips, but I'm grateful for their kindness. Someday, I'll have to tell the child the truth, but I believe we can overcome it with my understanding in-laws. My father is still quiet but seems a bit softer than before. He's even started helping with the baby. When my mother-in-law and I do the dishes, he quietly approaches the baby. He tries to hide it, but he's clearly smitten with the baby. Once, I caught him casually changing a diaper.
Wow, Dad, you can change diapers? That's surprising. What are you talking about? I've raised kids twice. This is a piece of cake.
Despite everything, it was probably my father who was the happiest to hear that Emily had a baby. I never asked him directly, but I could imagine him doing a victory pose in his heart, and I couldn't help but smile to myself as I watched him. I quit my previous part-time job and started working as a caregiver in the facility where my mother is staying. The job is tough, but I enjoy talking with many people, including my mother. Not all the problems I've faced have disappeared. But even so, I am happy now. I plan to find even more joy in life, enough to make up for the times I've missed out on.